Hey everyone, good afternoon. This is Deepak here. Just a quick sound check. Can you guys hear me? I see about 11 people here. So just doing a quick sound check. Okay, is it loud and clear or do you find any echo or disturbance? Thanks Vijay for the feedback. What about other people? Can you guys also hear me? Savita, Sunil. Who else do we have? Sai Charan, Sai Kumar, Praveen, Muhammad, Harpreet, Dhwani, Ashish, Anupama, Alfonsa. Thank you guys for joining in. Good to have you in here. Can I get a quick feedback for audio? I just have one yes. Okay. All right, so if you have questions even before we begin, you can just ping in to the questions window or your chat window, right? What we'll do is we'll go through the agenda of the webinar, and what we are going to do is I'll walk you through various aspects of careers in cloud computing and architecture and also in allied areas. And that should take about 30 to 35 minutes, and post that we'll open the floor for Q&A. Right, so it should not take more than an hour, and that's the agenda. So I'll just wait for another minute if you guys want to give some feedback regarding audio, and if not, I'll assume everything is fine and we are good to start. Okay, thanks a lot, Sai Charan, for the feedback. Let's get started. So again, welcome everyone. Good afternoon, and hope you're having a great day. The agenda of this session is to discuss the cloud computing industry in general, and what the career beholds in terms of aspiring professionals like you and I, and other people who already might have been working in the cloud industry. So let's get started. If you look at the evolution of IT companies in the last decades or so, or to be precise, in the last 30 odd years, when we started with companies like Microsoft and Apple and IBM, the way it started was you had a lot of on-prem infrastructure, right? We can go into a lot of historical discussions, but let's understand the summary and what happened at a high level, right? So when you looked at those kind of companies, these people had a lot of on-prem infrastructure, and even if you look at companies today, with the likes of Google, Facebook, and other entities, they have a lot of on-prem infrastructure. And what do they do with this infrastructure, right? Apart from satisfying their own IT application and hardware needs, right? So when you think about cloud computing, it has literally taken off with a whole lot of magnitude and excitement and industry investment in the last 10 to 12 years. If you had to look at specific time frame, 2005 and 6 is when cloud computing literally started taking off, and companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, with its Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, started battling around for cloud ecosystem and its investment space. Now, what has happened eventually is companies have evolved, right? They're spending less and less time wrestling with their servers and trying to fix things. It's the age of disposable infrastructure. So today, if your server has a problem, and if it's a virtual server, you just dispose it off. You don't spend time in fixing it, because you know the moment you dispose that virtual server from your hardware catalog, you can create another server within a span of minutes, right? That's what cloud is allowing you to do. The moment you lose a hard drive space on the cloud, the next moment you can have an equal amount of storage either on Google Drive, either on OneDrive, or box.com, right? So that's what cloud is allowing you to do. So it's the age of disposable infrastructure. It's the age of infrastructure as a code, and it's a time where It's a time where we are talking about hardware in the context of software. By that, what I mean is, if you want to create a hardware configuration on your infrastructure, you can simply write a Terraform file or a CloudFormation script, and that script is good enough, to create everything that you want. You do not have to go manually out in a data center and create all of this. A single script file can do that for you, right? All of that. So companies have evolved. They're spending very less time tackling hardware and more time optimizing it. And the hard truth is, you really don't get any points from your customers for using servers, right? You only get points for serving your users. At the end of the day, your customer time and money is important, and that's what I'm sure you guys would agree we are all working for, right? Whether you are a service-based company, whether you are a product company, whether you are an enterprise or a small startup, right? All of us are fighting, to achieve those parameters and to satisfy our customers on different metrics of performance, right? So I see Mohammed raising his hand. Do you have a question, Mohammed? I see you've raised your hand, but I don't see a question. Okay, so Sunil has a question. So guys, what I'll do is, for the clarity of everyone, let's bear with me for about 10-15 minutes. Let me just give you an overview of what cloud computing is, and then we can take specific questions, right? If that works for you. For quick answers, Sunil, that's correct. Cloud will have architecture like in networking, because at the end of the day, cloud is a whole lot about networking itself, right? So we'll go into that depth and we'll discuss about these specific things. But let's finish the overview first. Okay, so continuing on our discussion from here, if you look at the evolution of startups, if you look at the companies that have recently started in the last 5 or 6 years, especially with cloud becoming mainstream, these are amazing companies, right? These are companies like Stripe, Rubrik, Looker, Cloud Health, and much more. Airbnb, for that matter, right? Slack. If you look at even WhatsApp, the way it has evolved, these are companies which have leveraged cloud computing literally 100%, right? There is a term which you guys might have come across. It's born on cloud. So some companies are literally born on cloud. By that, what it means is they do not have anything of their own. They do not own any infrastructure, but they live and breathe on cloud in terms of their hardware requirements and software deployment requirements, right? Okay, so Bridgie has a question. Will you cover cybersecurity in cloud? Okay, so I assume it's a question for our curriculum, right? For our program. So we have not yet reached there. So program related questions, guys, let's hold on for about 10-15 minutes. I'll be happy to answer all your questions. But the main agenda of this session is to not, just focus on our program, but why do we even have that kind of program, right? Why are we teaching what we are teaching, and why are we, willing to invest in training professionals and creating professionals the way we are doing, right? So let's understand that. Okay, so I'll answer all these questions in about 10-15 minutes. So going back to our discussion, if you look at the new age of startups, some of them are literally born on cloud, and the only way that's possible is cloud gives you a global infrastructure. Cloud gives you, different regions, different data centers, different accessibility zones in which you can plug in your application and deliver it to a global audience. So if I were a company, or if you wanted to start a company tomorrow, you really don't need to buy anything. You really don't need to have that kind of capex infrastructure to start. Initially, people had capital expenditure as the bottleneck, right? If I had to raise about $1 million just for my data center and hardware requirements, that was a huge deal breaker for me. But today, as a startup, if I had to use about 100 servers, 10 TB of data storage capacity, and a load balancer and all of that, I can literally just subscribe to Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud or Alibaba Cloud, right? For that matter, and I can get started the next hour, all with a swipe of a credit card, and of course with what I want in terms of services, right? So cloud has transformed existing enterprises and companies, but cloud is also transforming companies which are starting now, right? The new age companies. So it has also disrupted the business model. And if you read up about cloud computing in general, most of the times people will talk about pay as you go and utility pricing model, right? You just pay for what you use. So that has enabled different economies, and then it has also allowed people to leverage economies of scale in their own industries. A lot of numbers on this slide, but I would like to draw your attention on the four corners here, right? So if you look at the first parameter, the first number on the first row, right? It says $162 billion of spend by 2020 only on cloud computing. So if you look at the industry trends, if you look at the amount of money people are willing to spend on cloud computing, it's huge, right? It's over $150 billion. Of course, this is a global number. It's not just about India, but even if you look at India, it's about $4 to $8 billion. And that's only an estimate, and it's a conservative estimate at that, right? So it's a huge market, and it's a ever-growing market, at least for the next 5 to 10 years, because of allied areas as well, and we'll discuss about it. If you look at the second number, if you can look at the rightmost corner of the first row, you look at 85% of companies are using multiple clouds, right? So 8 or 9 out of 10 companies are using clouds for sure, and not just one single cloud provider. They are leveraging and taking benefits of multiple cloud computing platforms, right? So that's the number. 85% of companies are using multiple clouds. So that shows the trust and the maturity of cloud technologies, and the faith that not just smaller companies, but large enterprises like Walmart and Flipkart are showing. So obviously, if you keep up to date with news, you must have read an article yesterday itself that Walmart had signed a huge deal with Microsoft, right? So they've paired up with Microsoft to move over and to migrate more than 100 existing applications from Walmart to Azure Public Cloud, right? So that's the kind of deal people are making. And if people like Walmart and if companies like Walmart can move to cloud with hundreds of applications, both critical and non-critical in nature, it clearly testifies the maturity for cloud computing, right? And it's a huge market for the next 5 to 10 years. Just the last statistic that I would like to delve here is the rightmost corner, right? It says 74% of CFOs say that cloud computing will have biggest impact in their business by yesterday, literally, right? So this is a slightly old statistic, but if you extrapolate that to the present times and to the next 3 or 4 years, it clearly says 3/4 of 3 out of 4 CFOs believe that cloud computing is impacting and will continue to impact their business, and that means rethinking their investment decisions, replanning their financial budgets, and allocating stuff to cloud computing in terms of money, skills, personnel, and all of that. So that's where over $150 billion of spend is going through, and then a majority of the CFOs are already convinced. Okay, so I'm just looking at the list of questions quickly, and I see most of them are related to the program and what it pertains to, right? So guys, just hold on for a bit. Like I said, we'll come back to the list of questions quickly once we are done with the overview. Okay, so since I see the interest of the group more towards the program, what I'll do is I'll quickly run you through the overview of cloud computing as an industry so that you can appreciate the opportunity that you have in your career, and then we can discuss specifically about the PG program in cloud computing at Great Lakes. So like I said, the growth in public cloud services is also happening in India, and by 2020 we're talking about $4 billion of investment in the IT industry just for cloud computing, and this is nearly 3 times of what we did a couple of years ago. If you look at this particular graph here, the message that you should take from this particular slide is we've just started. As far as cloud computing is concerned, we have just started, and we are looking at a long-term transition and a change in paradigm for computing. So it's only the start of this particular evolution. And 2/3 of companies globally still use traditional data centers, and that number is unfortunately larger in India, right? So traditionally, and unfortunately, we've been a follower in terms of niche technology and product technology, but that is changing with cloud computing and ML and AI, machine learning and artificial intelligence. And if you look at the colors here, I would like you to look at the green color, right? So in 2013, that color said 76% of the bar share is for traditional data center. And if you look at the amount of green in the last tower here, or the bar diagram here, it says 63%. What that means is traditional data center space is reducing and people are moving to cloud, right? So that's a clear evolution out there. Okay, so like I said, it's only the beginning of this particular cloud revolution. And it's not just about cloud, it's also about things that you do on cloud. And we'll just talk about it in a minute. But if you look at the category of companies here, and if you look at what the legend means, so 28% of large enterprises are completely cloud focused. Okay, that's 1/3 of the market, literally. I mean, almost 1/3 of the market. And then if you look at another 30% of the large enterprises, they've become cloud explorers. So they are looking at ways to harness the power of cloud computing through different projects, through different domains and different technology segments. And only 4% of large enterprises and only 7% of small and medium businesses have no plans whatsoever to learn and use cloud computing, right? That's a very small number. And if you look at the rest of it, more than 90% of people, small and large, medium businesses and large enterprises, have used or are looking to use cloud computing significantly, right? So it is very likely that your company, if not today, then definitely by tomorrow, will use cloud computing for some or the other project or some or the other domain that you might be working in. So for a very simple question, if you ask, is one cloud computing platform enough? I know AWS, I know Azure, I know just Google Cloud. Is that enough for me, for my company, or for the project that I work for? The clear answer is no, right? And it's not me saying no, it's the general sentiment of the industry. It's the general sentiment of CEOs and CTOs, and also through this research, right? If you see, 85% of the companies are using multi-cloud, which means companies are using and working on more than one cloud platform, and their projects are leveraging multiple cloud platforms, including the concept of hybrid computing, right? Now, we will not go into the details of what multi-cloud and what hybrid computing is, but the message here is clearly companies are looking at multiple cloud platforms, right? Like in the earlier days, you would look at multiple programming languages and technology stacks based on specific use cases. So if you look at the evolution of cloud and the allied technology areas, it's not just about cloud, but also what technological evolution it has facilitated, right? So if you talk about edge computing and fog computing, it's an offshoot of cloud, right? In cloud, you talk about centralizing the intelligence and processing and storage power in one particular platform, in a set of data centers with a given provider. Whereas in edge computing, you try to again redistribute the intelligence and push the compute and processing and storage to multiple nodes rather than just one set of cluster and servers. With cloud, what has also happened is the next generation of virtualization technologies like containers have evolved, right? So now people are talking about virtual machines, but more than that, they're talking about containers, right? Things like Docker, things like LXT, things like Rocket and CoreOS, right? And if you talk about containers, they have evolved over the last 30 and 40 odd years, to be very honest with you, but people have started talking about it now because things like Docker have happened, right? And if you are a developer or a DevOps or an infrastructure person, and if you deploy your team's code onto an infrastructure, it's very likely that you are already thinking or will think about Docker and DevOps and all of that very soon, right? So these are only some of the things that cloud has helped evolve, and it becomes easier to do, easier to create, let's say, 100 containers on a cloud platform rather than doing it on-prem, and especially in the presence of virtualization, right? And if you look at who does all of this, of course, it's the cloud computing professionals, right? So any new technology that comes in the market, any new computing paradigm that comes in the market will need people to adopt it, right? Unless you and I and the industry adopts cloud computing, it doesn't really mean anything. No matter how accurate or how beneficial a technology is, it only makes sense when the industry accepts it, right? So once the industry starts accepting something, you obviously need people who are trained in that particular skill set and understand what either cloud computing or AI or machine learning means, right? So of course, cloud computing professionals are in demand, and this chart here just gives you an insight as to what kind of salaries and compensation these professionals can expect, right? So it's clearly leading the pack. Additionally, a common myth here is that cloud computing is only about hardware, right? That's not true. What is true is, of course, it started as a hardware concept because AWS, apparently the most famous cloud computing platform, started offering infrastructure as a service, which meant processors and storage and volumes and all of that. And that's one of the reasons why people think cloud is only about hardware. But that's a myth, and cloud is much more than hardware. It's also about platforms that you use to build your applications. It's also about containers and your DevOps culture and processes that you want to implement in your companies, right? So cloud has evolved a lot, and like any other advanced computing paradigm, it incorporates multiple aspects of what IT does, right? And it's not just about hardware, it's much more about hardware. Today, you can literally do everything related to Internet of Things, machine learning, and AI on cloud, right? And you don't even have to create an algorithm for that. It's already offered by cloud providers as part of the service, right? So cloud is much more than hardware. So one of the executives recently and very famously quoted this, that cloud computing will virtually replace traditional data centers within 3 years, right? So clearly I am not surprised by this, because this has been the trend almost 5 years now. And if that is going to happen by 2021, all traditional data center folks, technologies, applications will have to move to cloud and will have to learn cloud computing. And that is going to happen whether we like it or not, right? For the better of everyone. So now we come down to all the kind of specific questions that you guys have been asking. And I think from here on, you might get answers to some of the questions that you've asked, and I'll also have a look at the questions specifically towards the end. So what kind of skills people are looking for? What kind of skills do companies, hire for today and will hire for in the recent upcoming future, right? So these are just, some of the skills, but these are the top 5 skills what people look for. So it's about databases and big data on cloud. It's about enterprise cloud migration. It's about containers. It's about DevOps, and it's also about cloud governance and security, right? So these are the top 5 skills that you should, look forward to inculcate in yourself and have it in your CV and profile, and obviously build a body of work and have a set of projects that you might have implemented in these areas, right? So that's what people are looking for today. And having said that, how can we help you, right? How can Great Lakes, how can IIT Chicago, and how can Great Learning help you take that particular leap of career and have that kind of transformation from not knowing about cloud computing to become a serious cloud professional? And if you're somebody who has already worked with cloud, you can capitalize on that particular wisdom and become a technical solutions architect, or somebody who has in and out of understanding of how to build the solutions, right? You will come across people who have multiple certifications, right? And with all due respect, and certifications serve a very specific purpose, right? So if you're working on a project that really wants you to understand let's say a framework for an architecture, or let's say an IoT framework, or let's say a certification for VMware or a Google Cloud, you should definitely do that. But that serves a very specific need, right? Certifications are platform and vendor specific, and they really do not translate into platform agnostic and company agnostic technical wisdom. So if you were to become a technical solutions architect, you would want to go beyond specific certifications and specific skill sets, right? So that's what our higher level aim is. And the PG program in cloud computing that we have aims to impart a holistic set of skills to you, and our agenda and our design is that people after pursuing this program right should become and or at least should be on the path to become technical solutions architect, right, for cloud computing. Now let's see what specifics are in store for you as far as this course is concerned. Right, so it's a postgraduate program. Many of you will obviously have a questions. How can you call this program a postgraduate program? Because it's just 6 months, right? And a PG program is usually a year or a longer, right? So first of all, UGC and AICTE have their own set of recommendations. But if you were to really do your research and understand facts, none of the IIMs are actually accredited by AICTE or UGC, right? So UGC does not rate IIMs, and IIMs are apparently the best business schools in the country, right? Whereas Great Lakes, in fact, was the first institute to be recognized and approved by AICTE. So, not going into that particular discussion and debate, what I'm trying to say here is the PG program is really meant for people who have a bachelor's degree, of course, in different backgrounds, but are looking to capitalize on their work experience, right? It's more about what you have done than what you have studied, and it's more about what you know now than what you might have studied 5 or 10 years back, right? So this program is a 6-month executive program for working professionals, right? You will not find a classmate who has not worked anywhere and has just graduated. This program is not meant for freshers. So it's a 6-month program. It's an executive program. It's completely online, so you can pursue it from wherever you are, right, as long as you satisfy program requirements and attend all the sessions and do your labs and projects. It is designed for professionals who are on the path to becoming architects, or who might have been junior architects, or team leads and senior people in their team, and would want to capitalize on their existing wisdom and learn more and become architects who have comprehensive knowledge of how to stitch together a solution. The format is very convenient. Like I said, it's completely online, and including your hands-on labs and projects, you attend classes from literally wherever you are, right? So we conduct our program through Zoom meetings. It's a platform for online collaboration like WebEx or any other tool that you might be aware of. So it's a really convenient format. And if you look at people who teach you and who mentor you in the program, they are all industry leaders in their own companies and domains. And like all other our faculties and mentors, they leverage their wisdom and experience to bring the best out of you and to impart you real tech skills. And the icing on the cake is that you get dual certification, and you get certification not just from Great Lakes Institute of Management, Chennai, but you also get an international certification from IIT Chicago, which is Illinois Institute of Technology, Chicago, right? So if you walk with your CV and if you have the certification on it, you're clearly accepted worldwide, right? So that's in a nutshell what the program is about. And let me now look at the set of questions and see if you have questions related to what we discussed just now. Guys, just give me 1 minute. I'm looking at the set of questions. Okay, so the one I see here is, what are the factors a company takes into consideration before benefit to move to cloud? Trying to imagine if a technical constraint can restrict them to move to cloud. Ashish, I hope you can still hear me, and that your screens are all clear. Do you see the set of questions on your screen, guys? I don't think so. Okay, so Ashish, if you're still hearing me, there are multiple things that might stop a company from moving to cloud. Top of that is security. The other thing is budget. One of the other factors is if you have a real legacy legacy application, which has been there for about a decade or more than a decade, and if it uses really old technology, right, it becomes difficult to refactor and redesign it. So there are multiple things which might stop a company from moving to cloud, right? And we do discuss all of that in the program. Okay, so I guess I answered Ashish's question. Guys, just give me 1 second. There are a lot of questions here, and what I'm trying to do is scroll through each one of them so that we answer most of you, if not all. Okay, so now I have the set of questions. Right. So for Brij Bihari Pandey's question, will you cover cybersecurity in cloud? If you are asking about this particular course, yes, we cover aspects of cloud security. But if you wanted to, specifically study about cybersecurity, this is not the right program for that, right? So we do not cover security as a dedicated course. But if you had experience in working with applications, security is sprinkled across the entire infrastructure. So we do discuss aspects of security, but that's with the perspective on the application and the cloud infrastructure, right? So if you're looking for specific cybersecurity courses, this is not the right program. Okay, so again, Bridge is asking how GL scores above other cloud training institutes. Okay, great question. So Bridge, let me not spend too much time here, but this is something that participants do on their part, right? I'm sure if you're pursuing a course, you would want to do your own research and do honest research as that, right? Right? Just because you're attending this session, I would not tell you, GL is best just because it is the best. You really need to look at what a program offers, right? And what is your motivation. So even if, let's say, we had the best cloud computing program, but if you did not have the right motivation of pursuing it, you will not get the best out of it, right? So it's not just about the quality of the program and the institution themselves, but it's also about your motivation. So I would like to understand that first, and it then depends upon what are you looking for, right? But to quickly answer your question, if you look at training institutes, first of all, they have very isolated and siloed approach to individual courses, right? So you can easily do an AWS Solutions Architect course from Udemy, for example, for $700, right? That's peanuts, and it's again convenient, and you might argue that, hey, why not do that? So feel free to do that as well, and people do it, right? In fact, people who pursue our program have done multiple courses, either on Udemy, Coursera, aCloud Guru, and all the avenues that you have for learning. But what they have realized, and I hope this answers your question, what they have realized is what you learn is just service specific cosmetic stuff, right? You might learn what S3 is, right? You might learn how to create an S3 bucket, but you will not learn how does S3 play a role given a use case, right? Now, the problem is industry needs people who can stitch together a solution by combining multiple services and will not ask you how a single service functions, right? It's not a vibe out there. So they are looking for people who can create solutions, and that's what we focus on. Okay, so your labs, your projects will focus on combining multiple services, and that's how we are different from other people, and that's why people have had great learning outcomes. So I hope that answers your question. Do you have a master degree program in it? No, it's a PG certificate program, and it's not a master's program. Okay, what is the source of which data? Okay, I'm sure we have cited sources on each of the slides, but you're looking at a certain specific slide. I can certainly redirect you to that particular source. But all of this data is publicly available, by the way. Okay, so Manoj has asked why people use multiple clouds, any specific use cases which you can share, right? Okay. So Manoj, if you had a web application, right, which had a data store and which worked with some of the older technologies, right? and some of the proprietary technologies. For example, if you had a SAP workload, right? No matter what module of SAP you're working, but let's imagine you had an SAP workload and you wanted to combine that particular SAP application with, you know, an in-house application that you might have developed and which totally works on a different technology. Let's say it's a web application, right? Node.js and all of that stack. Okay, now if you had an SAP application, it's much easier to move an SAP application to an SAP cloud enabled environment rather than an Azure and AWS, right? So I would rather prefer SAP cloud themselves as compared to other platforms. So that becomes one cloud provider for me. And then you have your web application, which you want to deploy on cloud. So for that, you can easily choose AWS or Azure, depending on what's your comfort with the skill sets are and what cloud you see as beneficial in terms of cost and a lot of other factors. So if you look at this use case, I'm using SAP Cloud, I'm using AWS Cloud, for example. So that becomes a case of multiple clouds for me, right? I hope that answers your question. Okay, so Vijay has an easier set of questions. So what cloud platforms you are going to teach us? So very quickly, you will learn AWS, you will learn Azure, you will learn the basics of OpenStack, right? But what we believe is you should not look at them as cloud platforms because we will not teach you cloud platforms. We are going to teach you concepts through these cloud platforms. And like you learn programming through C language, let's say most of us might have done that. So it's not really about C language, it's about the programming constructs that you want to learn, right? So we want people to learn cloud computing, but yeah, for your question, it's AWS and Azure and OpenStack, and a lot of other concepts, including Docker, microservices, big data, things like Hadoop, EMR, Hive, Scoop, Flume, all of that, right? So you will learn multiple things in a span of 6 months. Okay, so how long Cloud Lab will be available to us, or we need to buy cloud accounts separately to practice? So Bridge, it's about both. Okay, so no matter where you're pursuing your cloud program from, so what we do is we obviously give you an individual AWS or Azure account, right? You work in that, and you have the lab access available for a specific period of time, right? So it's 3 to 4 days depending on the nature of the exercise for a lab, right? And it's 8 to 10 days for a project. Now we've structured it very differently, and this time that you have for lab access is, you know, more than sufficient to complete that use case and submit it, right? So I would not go into the details as to how it is structured, right? You can look forward to it when you kind of apply or enroll, but it's more than what you need, and it's accessible for a longer duration for projects, and for 3 to 4 days for a lab. And for your question, if you want to buy a separate account, it's always recommended, because what you will get from Great Learning Cloud account is based on the use cases, right? It's not a fully administrative account; it's a managed account. So it will have restrictions, because I'm sure all of you will understand cloud is a pay-as-you-go model, and whatever you do on cloud has a cost element attached to it. So if you wanted to experiment with certain set of use cases, you can do that in a personal AWS or Azure account. So it's highly recommended for experimentation. Okay, so Dhwani is asking how many classes would be during the week and what timings. Okay, so Dhwani, we do not do any classes during the week, it's only weekends. And if that was the meaning of your questions, we do classes either on a Saturday or Sunday, but it's only on the weekends. And these are mentored learning sessions, right? And we follow a flipped classroom model. If you already are not aware of a flipped classroom model is, the expectation there is you learn from, the bulk of the learning happens through a high quality set of recordings that we do, and the concepts are made available to you a week before. Okay, and you are supposed to learn from that content for a week, and then come to the classroom prepared for a much more advanced discussion, right? So what that does is it avoids all the basic questions, and it allows you to dedicate the class time for qualitative discussion, whether it's a use case, whether it's a clarification for a concept that you're seeking, or anything else, right? So that's the model model we follow, and your classes happen on a weekend. Okay, so Manoj has another question. I have more of a programming experience, no infrastructure experience. Will this program help me? I want to move into cloud computing. So Manoj, you can definitely pursue this program because cloud anyways is about both, right? It's not just about programming or infrastructure. You need to combine kind of both the elements and create a solution. So it will not teach you. So for example, if you did not know what computer storage is, of course we can deep dive into it, but we cannot, nobody will teach you what a subnet or what a CIDR or what a hard drive is, right? That's kind of expected. But if you have specific requirements, the program manager, right, in this case me and the academic manager can set up a study plan and try to help you out, right, if there's a specific requirement. But you can definitely pursue this program, and that's what the agenda of the entire curriculum is, right? Sai Charan, yes, you will do such projects. Anirudh is asking, how can we get multiple practical sessions? So Anirudh is again offline, but let me answer that. You will have multiple labs, and that is how you learn multiple skills, right, through your 6-month duration. Praveen, we do not do trial classes, but what we have is once you apply to the program, you get a content preview, right? So what happens is once you apply, you get login credentials to our platform, and you will have a nice preview of how a recorded content looks like, right? What an industry sessions looks like, what a pre-work looks like, and then that should give you enough data and understanding of what kind of quality and design this program has. So that should help you. Manoj Joshi has a question around, does the program provide details around costing of cloud or the financial aspects of endorsing cloud for an organization? It's a big yes. Okay, we do that, we discuss that, and you will need to do that for your capstone project also, right? In fact, the capstone projects are not done in Great Learning account. It's done in a team's personal account that they create by themselves. And the first step for that is to create an architecture diagram, do the costing, and convince your clients of the economical value that you're trying to bring in. So it's a big yes, Manoj. We teach DevOps in depth, but if you mean that do you cover all the tools in depth, the answer is no. But we focus more on what DevOps means, what's the culture, what are the different phases in DevOps, things like CI/CD, infrastructure as a code, right, the monitoring and logging and all of that. But we might not necessarily focus on just teaching Chef or just teaching Puppet across multiple weeks, right? That's not the purpose, because your tools can change. Tools can change depending on the use case, but the philosophy and the fundamentals don't really change, right? So we focus on that. So yes, you will learn DevOps in depth, right? But you will not learn a specific tool chain per se, because that can depend on the use case itself. And we'd like to cover multiple use cases. Okay, Sumedh is asking a question. I am interested in development in cloud domain, .js, cloud Java base. If not, what prerequisites are required for development? Sumedh, I'm not sure how you will react to this answer, but nothing changes as far as development is concerned, to be honest with you, right? If you're writing Java code, you will still write Java code in pretty much the same manner, whether you're writing it off-prem or on cloud, right? It really doesn't change. So I'm not sure what you wanted to understand. Anirudh, again, to get sample lectures, you can just apply for the program. It doesn't cost, it hardly costs anything, and you get content preview for that, and based on that content preview, you can make your decision whether you like the program in such, and then you can take the decision. Praveen, does GL help me to career counseling to find career paths? Shall I go ahead with cloud computing or big data and analytics? Praveen, that's a very open-ended question. We definitely counsel you, right? In fact, I would love to have a one-to-one conversation with you, right, and understand what your background is, because I've not seen your CV. I don't know what you've done, but yes, we definitely help you to understand your own career and suggest possible paths. Okay, so since companies are using hybrid clouds, that's why it is good to know Azure and AWS. What percentage of AWS will be covering? Okay, so that's a very numeric question, Ashish. I don't think it's the question that we should be looking at, because if you look at AWS, honestly, there are more than 100 services, right? And literally creating a user is a service, IAM. Okay, just running a machine learning algorithm is a service. So if you were to learn all the hundreds of services on AWS, it in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't mean anything as a solutions architect, right? What you would want to learn are the set of fundamental concepts first, and then the set of managed services that you have, which you would want to build a solution for, and which you will need as an architect. So if you look at the percentage, I'm really not sure. I have to calculate it manually, because AWS adds about multiple services every other week, right? So it's a very difficult question to answer in absolute number, but to give you a data point, people have become, AWS solutions architect, both associate and professional, just by pursuing the program, right? They have not taken any extra training. They've become architects, and some people, in fact, have all the 3 associate certifications, and even then they find our labs and projects to be insightful and meaningful, right? So that's the kind of testimonial we get, and that's why we believe what the labs and the projects that people are doing are really helpful, even for people who already have AWS certifications, right? So I hope that helps you with some data. Dhwani will. So it's an online course. We'll share obviously reading materials, industry articles, and all of that, but we really do not share any hard books, right? There are no physical books that we share, because that's not what we are doing. And what the material that you have in terms of instructional content, additional learning resources, industry articles, and white papers and documents proves to be more than sufficient, right? But if there's a specific resource that you would like, and if we have it available within our catalog, we'll be happy to share that. Vijay, you can definitely pursue the program, right, if you're a hardware and networking guy. Ashish, we do not endorse any specific language, but looking at the market trend, Python is something that you would want to learn from. We do not teach Python as a programming language, because we expect people at least to understand and make sense of one programming language. But if you feel that you need to work on any programming language, Python is something which you can pick up. Dhwani, timings will be conveyed to you once you enroll, and the program office will let you know. Brij Bihari, how long training videos will be available to us? Right, so they'll be available to you even after you graduate, and you can access it, more than a year or two, unless they become stale in terms of content, right? Because tech content becomes outdated, and even if you have a lifetime access, it wouldn't serve the purpose that you have. But for your question, you will have access even after you graduate. Sai Charan, yes, in depth. You will learn Lambda in depth. Fantastic. Okay, Sai Charan has a very good question. If I'm stuck on a project on mid of week, will someone help us? Sai Charan, first of all, in projects, what you can seek is guidance, right? But you cannot seek solutions. Okay, so for labs, absolutely. In fact, people in their class group on WhatsApp, help each other a lot, and more than 70% of learning comes from their own peers. But because project is evaluated component, you will not, you're not expected to seek help from others or even the program office. But as far as understanding the project and expectations is concerned, you can reach us to, reach out to the program office anytime. Right. So Praveen, I'm coming to that. So now that I've answered all the questions, let me continue, because we only have about 10 minutes left, and let's understand the rest of the specifics of the programs, and we can take any final questions if we have. Okay, so this is what you will learn in a nutshell, right? Some of you had questions as to what we will learn. So without delving into each of the points here, these are the categories and buckets of your learning that will happen, right? So there are foundational concepts that you need absolutely to become a cloud professional. right? Without these concepts, you wouldn't be able to do your job as effectively as expected, right? So you learn foundational concepts, you learn AWS, Azure, and much more beyond that, right? So for example, if there were a group of people who really wanted to get a sneak preview of Google Cloud, although it is not in our curriculum, we would be more than happy to facilitate that, right, through an industry session or through a special workshop. Right? So it's not just limited to the curriculum. It's also about, as a class, what do you guys expect? And of course, we can't accommodate all the variations of requests, but if there is something meaningful that you really want to learn about, we really try our best to accommodate that through special sessions, workshops, and industry sessions as well. Of course, you will, throughout the program, we will stress and emphasize and push you to learn how to build a solution and not just consume a service, right? Our idea is not to teach you EC2 or S3 or Azure VM or Azure ML or all of that. Our emphasis and our agenda here is to teach you, hey, this is the use case. What is the solution that you propose, right? And if you are proposing a solution, what is the architecture that you will draw as an architect? And if you're drawing an architecture, what are the components out there? How do you connect each of them, right? How do you and once you have done that architecture, where do you build it? Do you choose AWS? Do you choose Azure? Right? And why do you choose either of them? So these are the kind of questions we want people to answer, and that's what quality architects are able to do in real life as well, right? And the only things and exercises that you have as part of the program are hands-on. Okay, we will not give you any theoretical exercise, MCQ based questions or case study. All the exercises are hands-on exercises, and these are labs and projects, right? So that's what you'll do throughout the program in 6 months. For the question, who are the faculties? These are the faculties, and it's only an indicative list, right? We like to call them mentors because it's more of a mentoring rather than teaching you step by step, because that's what you do through instructional content. So you have people who have been chief architect at Dell, right? You have people who are still working with Microsoft and are senior cloud solutions architect. You have people who have worked with multiple consulting assignments in companies as a big data and cloud expert, and you really have thought leaders in the industry. So for example, Dr. Saurabh Datta is also a senior member of IEEE, is a thought leader on IoT and smart cities and cloud, and is also a chief technology officer at Payback, right? So your faculties are some of the best people in the industry, and you will learn from these kind of people throughout the program. Okay, I can't emphasize enough the importance of this particular slide here, but if you ask me what would I do in PGPCC, as a participant, my answer would be very simple, right? You will build solutions, right? Throughout the program, you will have multiple exercises, you will have multiple use cases, and all that you will do is build solutions, whether small and large, right? And apart from building solutions throughout the program, you will be evaluated based on what you do in your hands-on exercises. You will learn from industry experts in industry-led courses, and of course we have a central learning management system to facilitate all of that. So believe me, you will literally get tired by building solutions, and that is the reward that you get by pursuing such a rigorous program, right, in a span of 6 months. So it will be intense, right? By design, the program is intense, and by design, we expect you to put in multiple number of hours to complete this program, right? If the idea is to just put in a couple of hours, 1 or 2 hours here and there, and pursue a PG program from an institution like Great Lakes or IIT Chicago, this wouldn't happen, right? It will not serve your purpose, and you will not get quality learning outcomes, right? So apart from the number of hours that we prescribe, that you engage with us, you will easily need 6 to 8 hours of time working on your labs and projects, every week, and only then you'll be able to complete the program successfully. But believe me, if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to take the leap and work on known and unknown concepts and learn a lot, this program will serve your purpose, right? And that's how people become quality architects and senior people in the industry. Right, so a lot of people come back and ask, hey, do you promise career transition? Do you promise placements, for us. The thing is, for experienced professionals, career placements and campus placements do not take place, because that's not how the industry hires senior people. That's not how industry hires experienced people, right? Because when you're a fresher, you do not have any work history. So the company looks at your academic profile and your scores, and the keyword there is the company looks for your potential as a fresher, what you can do rather than what you have done. But as an experienced professional, companies have both the data points, right? They have your academic history, which is not that relevant when you're experienced, right? And they have your work history as well. So when you're experienced, even 5 years or 4 years, companies will hire you for your past project or the past domain or the past technological skill set that you pursue and have, within your expertise, and they will hire you based on that particular history. So we enable career success, right? We totally support you, and we do that through counseling you for a career transition. We look at your LinkedIn profiles and CVs and give you suggestions and inputs, and these are specific actionable items that we share with you, and we also share opportunities that companies share with us, right? So that's absolutely something we do. But once we share an opportunity with you at a certain company, it's really your KRA and your responsibility to apply for that opportunity and get that. And how do you do that? You do it in multiple ways. People who teach you are industry leaders. You can network with them as well. People who learn with you, your classmates, are people in the industry as well, right? So all of you are senior participants, and in fact, we have historically had a couple of instances where people have worked together for a capstone project, and one of the capstone team leaders hired his other team members, right? Just because they shared a great bond, and more than that, they knew each other professionally well to be comfortable to work with each other, right? And we also have industry connection sessions and industry insight sessions, so that you can connect with people and reach out. But it really depends on how you build your professional network, how do you leverage it, and how do you reach out to opportunities, right? But we definitely try to support you. But of course, for senior professionals and mid-career professionals, it doesn't make sense to guarantee placements, right? Right, so that's pretty much what I wanted to share with this particular session today, and I hope it was insightful and it was helpful to each one of you in some or the other sense. And let me look at the question window now to see if we have any last questions. Okay, so again, I don't see any further questions here, and I hope that I was able to answer, if not all, most of your questions. And if you still have questions, we have about a couple of minutes left. I'll be happy to answer them. If not, I hope you learned something from today's session, and I'll be happy to respond to any questions if you have them even later. You can write to that particular email ID on your screen, or reach out to the admissions office, and I can connect with you one-on-one as well, even if it's only about a personal counseling, right, as far as your career is concerned. So I hope this was meaningful to you, and thank you for attending, to each one of you. Just waiting for another couple of minutes if you have questions. Shashi, it depends on your existing salary, to be honest, right? Because I'm sure when you negotiate a salary with your future employer, they will ask you your present salary history, and they will ask you, hey, what are you promising to bring to the table, right? Do you have a new skill, to work with us? So if you pursue, let's say, this particular program, and if you pursue it in a completely rigorous and dedicated manner, you will have new skills to showcase, right? And to work with, not just showcase, but to actually implement them. And that should help you increase your salary as a professional who has upskilled in their career. Right? I hope that answers your questions. Thank you, Ashish, for attending. I wish you all the best in your career. All right, everyone. So I think Shashi was the only one with a question. So we'll close now, and I hope you guys learned something meaningful, and wish you all the best for your careers. Right? Have a good day. Thank you, everyone.